Welcome to Fort Worth 148's podcast, where we meet to discuss Masonic topics and strive to build value in the Brotherhood. The opinions and statements of the participants do not represent any positions or stance of any Grand Lodge or Lodge and are solely the viewpoints of the participants. Welcome back to the podcast, brothers. This is Rhit Moore, current secretary and past master of Fort Worth 148.
This is Billy Hamilton, senior steward for 148.
This is Gabriel Jagush, master mason with Fort Worth 148. And we have a special guest today.
Jason Banks with Stephenville 267, junior deacon at 267.
You know, it's good to have a guy on finally with an old number like ours. You know what?
Oh, the low three-digit numbers?
Yeah. What year was your lodge chartered, Jason?
1861. So about 6 years after y'all.
Yeah, 6 or 7.
6 years, but like 100.
1854, right?
It's interesting, though, because in such a short time, there were 100 lodges, more than 100 lodges getting chartered. That's crazy.
Oh, yeah, that was the boom, one of the boom times. Absolutely. So I think it's kind of cool because how did we meet, Jason?
Well, I added y'all on Facebook whenever I started listening to y'all's podcast a little bit, and then I kind of hit y'all up about possibly going to 148 to see y'all at a stated meeting and get to meet some of y'all, and then I talked to you a little bit after the stated meeting, and you asked me to come on the podcast, so I told you I would, and figured I'd try my hand at podcasting.
There you go. I mean, that's so awesome. And I think that's why we're all doing this, because, I mean, there's a hunger for more light out there. And it's not like we're spitting hot fire from this podcast, but obviously we're getting a few guys to think.
Definitely. Y'all are making me at least chase some rabbit holes. I can tell you that.
It's awesome. Awesome to have you.
Well, thank you. Awesome to be here.
All right, guys, so let's talk about discussion questions, and I've got 2 for us this week. The first one is kind of a simple one. I saw the question posted, what does the shrine do exactly? Because this is somebody who is, relatively new to everything, and they kind of like, well, like I kind of get what Scottish Rite does. I kind of get what York Rite does. What does the shrine do? Billy, you're a resident Shriner. Do you want to tackle that?
The Shrine is it's a very social organization. They do a lot of good. It really does focus around the children's hospitals, but they have fun while they're doing it. I would say it's one of the bodies that is really good about involving spouses. So there are a lot of dinners, a lot of events, and I notice a lot of couples tend to go together. The initiation ritual is very cool, but I'm kind of a sucker for ritual. At different clubs, and there's usually something for everybody in it. It's all about having fun and helping kids.
That does sound like a lot of fun, and I know that a lot of it does focus around the children's hospitals and stuff. And the best way that I have heard the shrine described is that it is the playground for the Masons that have worked hard, with the caveat being that, if you haven't worked hard, why are you going to the playground? So that's why there's a big focus in the shrine, or at least with the Shriners that I've talked to, there's a really big focus on coming back and really focusing on Blue Lodge and the other appendant bodies that they're members of. Just to kind of put in that energy, because originally it was supposed to be something a little bit more fun, less serious maybe than the other bodies,
Yeah, that's what I'd always understood it to be. It was a little bit less serious, more of the social aspect of it.
Yeah, and so now I think from talking to the guys that I know that are Shriners, there seems to be a big movement towards bringing back that dedication, which is super cool. So
I know Grotto and Shriners are pretty similar from what I understood, but I know I've been hit up a little bit to go towards the grotto, but I'm not really sure the big differences in between the two.
I don't think there is a lot of differences aside from the charities they support. The crude way I've had it explained to me is one's the grotto's the poor man's shrine.
They don't like it when you say that. No,
I didn't think so. That's why I said crude.
That is true that the grotto is a little bit more affordable in terms of dues and stuff like that. But
that's so sweet.
A couple of our good friends are prophets of the grotto, and one of it kind of from my impression of talking with them, they seem, because the grotto is a little bit of a smaller organization, they're more agile. They can move around a lot better. It's easier to plan stuff. They focus a lot more on, going out and doing stuff, because it's easier to, when you're dealing with a shrine temple, you're talking hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people that you have to wrangle. And you're cutting that down significantly in the grotto. So it's easier to get that fellowship in the grotto, because you're going to know almost everyone in your particular grotto. I don't know what they call them. It's not a lodge, but I don't know if it's a temple. But maybe it's
a secret.
Maybe your group.
Yeah, in your group. So
I think it's more esoteric than group.
But supposedly, the initiation for grotto is supposed to be beautiful. And so, but it takes something like 36 people to pull it off, 32, something like that. Wow.
Yeah, I know when Justin was talking to me about it, he was saying that they were going to have a ton of people come in. So,
okay. Yeah, Justin's also been talking to me about it, and I'm interested, but my wife told me if I join one more thing, she's out. So.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's why I'm trying to get it in before I get married.
That's a good idea, because my wife's almost the same way, and I've only joined two different bodies, Blue Lodge and Scottish Rite.
Yeah, that was great seeing y'all at Scottish Rite, by the way.
Man, that was a bunch of fun.
Yeah.
They did a good job.
So the second question I have for tonight is, how did you feel after being initiated?
Like, how did I feel immediately following the EA degree?
It's an open-ended question. Immediately afterwards, maybe a week afterwards, who knows? Like, just pick a scope.
Really the most non-eventful thing. And I hate to say it that way, but
really,
it took years for it to really be an initiatic experience.
I know for me, until you actually started getting into the actual trial lecture work and getting into kind of the second and third section where you really talk about getting in depth on it and really kind of past the point you start talking about your obligation, that's whenever it hit home for me, because then you're actually talking about it and reflecting upon it. Like once you actually have time to reflect upon it in that light, then you kind of understand it a little bit better.
It's funny you say that, because I will neither confirm nor deny, but I was initiated over 12 years ago, and my lodge might have been a little lax on the Q&A, as many lodges were. I don't know that to be true or false, but it really, when I learned the second and third sections, which was years after I'd become a Master Mason, that's when everything really started to click with me as well.
Yeah.
So I think that kind of lends some credence to how important those second and third sections are.
I gotta say, it's interesting that you mentioned that it was like such a non-event for you, because for me it's kind of the opposite. After my entered apprentice degree, I was like super giddy. I was blown away by like, oh man, it's so cool, like I'm a Mason now, and the initiation was so cool, and I did all right in the parts where I had to do where I had to do stuff. I was, I walked out of there going, man, this is the coolest ever, And for me, the total non-event was my master's, and I don't know why. Because I walked out of that and I was just like, okay, I mean, it was a Masonic degree, Okay, fine, And I didn't really experience that same sense of like awe until probably my Royal Master's degree in Council, and then again in the Order of the Temple and Commandery. But for me, it was the Master's degree that I was just kind of like, it's a Masonic degree.
Yeah.
But now that I've come back and revisited it and performed in it, the Master's degree to me is, it's irreplaceable and it's so special. But I didn't gain the appreciation that I have for it now by going through the Master's degree. I have that appreciation from actually participating in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's kind of the same thing, because none of my degrees were like huge aha moments. The master's degree stands out most just because of the acoustics in our room really got me in an initiatic kind of state of mind. But I don't know if I was too young or didn't know what was happening. Just wasn't a big moment.
For me, my master's was like, okay, I finally made it to this point, like it was kind of a relief for me, and like finally kind of like an acceptance, if that makes sense.
Sure.
Yeah.
For me,
Billy?
So for me, I had to wait a significant amount of time before I could be initiated, because I was initiated in the mid-90s, right? So I knew I wanted to be a Mason at 18, and I had to wait 3 years until the moment actually happened. After it did, I felt like it missed something, right? Like I kept on replaying it over in my head. Like I knew there were lessons there. It's like I felt like I had missed what I was supposed to pick up.
No, and I think that that's a huge thing, in that the sense that, we think we're going to get endowed after each degree with all this wisdom. And it's basically like they're handing us the scroll of the map or whatever it is, that's like, here's where you need to be looking. And because that's kind of the way I felt like, did I miss something there? I know that was supposed to be special, but because in the end, none of it really starts until you are a Master Mason, because you're learning catechisms and getting degree work, and it's all just roadmaps.
Yeah, once you gain the flexibility, once you become a quote-unquote traveling man and you've done all your catechisms and everything, that's when you get the flexibility to actually really start meditating on stuff and learning and everything like that, which, not to say that entered apprentices and fellow crafts can't have awesome contemplative experiences, but you have a lot more freedom to do that as a traveling Master Mason.
Uh-huh.
I think really what it is so the initiation, it may impact you and hit you really hard, or it may just pass you by and you're like, what happened? But I think when it really becomes clear to you, when you really start pulling the lessons out of it, is when you start doing the self-study afterward.
100%, no doubt. Because, you're going to have those aha moments, like you said, to where things probably will tie together during the degrees or the catechisms. But when you start digging in, it's when it just starts really driving that nail home.
It's really, you're just scratching the surface during the degree. You're given knowledge without the understanding, and it's later.
Let's move on to today's episode content. So this episode content is a fraternal spotlight on our guest, Jason Banks, and a little bit of a look at Masonry in Stephenville, where Jason is from. So again, Jason, thank you very much for coming on. It's a pleasure to have you on.
Well, thank you for letting me on. It's definitely my favorite podcast. So.
Oh, I'm going to turn pink with my blush.
Oh, no, I'm totally take that as a compliment. But after the podcast, let me tell you some much better podcasts to listen to.
Jason, can you tell us a little bit about yourself outside of the Masonic lens?
Sure. I'm actually the property manager over here Creek RV Park. It's an RV park outside of Stephenville that's owned and operated by my family. But what we do is we have an upscale RV community, and we're cabins to where it's just a great place for some college students as well as working age adults and some older people to come live in an affordable place.
So did you grow up in Stephenville? Sorry, Gabe.
I grew up in Midlothian, Texas, and I moved to Stephenville about 18 or 19 whenever I started college at Tarleton State University. I never quite finished there, but my family did buy some land on the other side of town, and I've been here in between here and College Station for most of the last decade. So I am pretty local to Stephenville at this point.
So when did you join Masonry, and how old were you?
Well, I was 27 years old. I'm 28 now, and it's literally, if you ask me a week from today, it would be my 1-year anniversary whenever I walked through the doors as an EA.
Well, congrats.
Sweet.
Well, thank you.
So you and I are both pretty new to this then. That's kind of cool.
Still pretty new, yes, sir.
And
Awesome.
So you've only been with the one lodge then, right?
No, actually, I just recently went plural over at Harmony 592, which is over in Morgan Mill, Texas. Great group of guys.
Oh, excellent.
Oh, the Sam Givens Lodge, yes.
Yes, sir.
So what was it
He's
that
a great guy.
What was it that drew you to the lodges that you're a member of now?
Well, really, it was just with Stephenville, I always knew I wanted to join whatever lodge I was going to be local to, and literally the lodge room itself is less than 3 miles away from my home, so it's really, really not far away from me. Other than that, I know Stephenville is the biggest out of anything in Erath County, where I wouldn't have to try to drive like 45 minutes or like I would have to if I went to Fort Worth for like an hour and 15 minutes to try to go farther away for lodge.
Mm.
That's how you do it.
Mm-hmm.
3 minutes would be legit, or 3 miles would be legit. I'd love that.
Yeah, it literally takes me 4 minutes and 12 seconds to get to lodge.
Man.
That is pretty nice, actually.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess you mentioned you're the junior deacon over there. Is that's the only office you've held then?
That's the only office I've held then, or as of right now. I'm currently the sitting junior deacon. I'm also I am the chairperson of the committee for social media and internet relations. I also help out with publicity as much as possible, and I also do a little bit of fraternalism. Like, I guess the best way to put it would be fraternalism chair, just helping out within the fraternity.
Well, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
No, I love to hear the social media. I think that's so important for lodges to have as a committee.
Yeah. Well, I came in and I was still an EA whenever I actually became kind of the head of that, because I kind of asked everybody, I said, why don't we have a Facebook page? Why aren't we doing just a couple general things like that to just reach out to a little bit of the younger audience that we have available in Stephenville? And I think it's helped us a little bit. I know we've gotten a couple thousand views on stuff that I posted on Erath County Breaking News, so I think it might have helped a little, but I'm not too sure. I don't think it's really brought in anybody specifically.
No, it's a slow burn. You know what I mean? It took us years to build ours up, and, we've only gotten 3 or 4 from Facebook. Well, I'll take that back. Here lately, we've gotten quite a few, hadn't we, Gabe? But, yeah, just keep it up, because it builds up.
Well, I definitely will. I kind of enjoy playing around on Facebook.
That's awesome.
And I do have a question for you for other lodges in bodies that are interested in using Facebook. Mm-hmm. Have you used it like promoting like the paid services from Facebook to try and reach out?
Really, I don't try to use any money to try to promote anything that's going on. Realistically, I know that especially in my county, we have news and we have different Facebook and social media oriented news services such as like the Flash, and our local newspaper even has a Facebook edition. So I just try to either talk to people with the Flash, or I'll post anything I can on the Erath County Breaking News.
Okay.
So that would be my suggestion, is instead of actually spending your money to be on somebody's ad space, just go to where people are going to see you in the main column.
It's a good point. Like and share that bad boy.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, because, I mean, if every active member in your lodge did 15 or 20, that's quite a few views that are getting out there.
Mm-hmm. On top of that, we've also started a private group for my lodge. I haven't done one for literally just went plural at that lodge less than 3 weeks ago. So I'm still, my gears are still, starting to churn on that one.
So, Jason, what would you say is your favorite aspect of Masonry and why?
My favorite aspect is really the brotherhood. I'm an old, so a lot of the time growing up, my family would travel. So being able to call a place like Stephenville, like this great place that I live, home, and being able to call the brothers that I have now, friends of mine and true brothers, it means the world to me.
No, I think that's a great aspect, because what are the odds of us ever meeting? I mean, really and truly, any of us on this podcast, as good friends as Gabe and Billy and I are, but even you, Jay, what are the odds of us ever meeting without this craft?
Probably not at all.
And that's what I'm saying. And that's one of the most magical things about this craft, is being able to be around a concentrated amount of guys that are just good dudes. Yeah.
Well, I'm a firm believer in you're the middle of your basically, if you can think of your four best friends, if you can figure out who your best friends are, you're the middle of those, like the middle of the pack of those. And if I can think of four of my best friends in Masonry, if I'm the middle of those people as far as like what they do and the quality of people they are, then I know I'm doing something right. So it makes me feel better as a person.
What do you see as the strengths and weaknesses of Masonry in Texas?
Well, I see a lot of strengths, and like I was talking about the general brotherhood and fraternalism. Every in Masonry has been extremely friendly to me and extremely almost like whenever I walked into y'all's lodge, it was just like I had been a part of that for years, and like I had initiated or I had gone through with y'all. I mean, it was just just a community of brothers that it was literally just that everything was just smoothed out and consistent, and everybody was friendly. As far as like weaknesses, I don't really see too many weaknesses, in just the fact that I wish we had a better overall public view of us as Masons. I don't really see a problem that we're doing in that, but I think that the way people view us as a group could change a little bit.
No, I think that's a great point, because for so long, we just kind of went underground for some reason, and good or bad, whatever you think about it, that was the appropriate thing to do at the times. And not that it was intentional, to hide from people. It was just the way those guys like to hang out. And that's the greatest generation, World War II generation, that just, when they went to lodge, they were doing their thing.
Mm-hmm.
And it didn't pass to the boomers. And so we've kind of lost our relevance in society. And some way or another, we've got to start trickling our name back out there, because there's no silver, but this isn't an overnight fix. It's going to take us a decade or two.
Yeah, definitely. And that's one of the great things about my lodge right now is guys bringing in are under the, and hopefully will be there for a while.
Oh, and that reminds me, I mean, the Scottish Rite degrees we just went through, I know you saw it too, Jason. The best, all the degrees were great, don't get me wrong, but the best theatrics were done by those young guys in DeMolay.
Oh, that was awesome.
They kicked
Billy,
butt. It was great.
Yeah. Your son was the MC of the whole thing, and their acting and the way they were pushing each other and hollering. I'm so looking forward to this next generation coming through and taking over this craft.
Yeah.
Cool. It's really cool to see the energy they put into it.
I was so impressed. I mean, because I'm one of the nerds that like to go to plays or musicals. My wife and I love those things. And I would have paid to see that. That was fantastic. You could tell they worked hard at that.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean, we got to be ready for that next generation.
And that question that I had, do you think that your proximity to Tarleton helps bring in a younger generation, or do you think that maybe there is interest sparking again?
I think a lot of it is more or less some of the people we're bringing in are more or less friends of ours that we're trying to show as a community and build as a community. So it's not necessarily Tarleton State, because we're not really an academic lodge, as Lance Kennedy would put it, as in like trying to bring people strictly from Tarleton State or strictly professors from Tarleton State. But we do have a few college students, but primarily it's alumni of Tarleton and different people that just stayed around in the community.
You know, something you guys should think about doing is an endowed scholarship with Tarleton. We had just done something similar with TCU, and it's already kind of opening the floodgates into being a part of the TCU community. And they're a close college to us, and I'm sure Tarleton would have a much lower bar than TCU, to where you donate so much money and it gives you a perpetual scholarship year after year.
Yeah, I know. We do give scholarships out every year through. We just give them out to typically Stephenville high school students, and I know majority of the scholarships we've given in the last couple of years that I've known about have been students that are going to Tarleton State, and it's reciprocated in that fact of, even I know one of the guys that we're looking at putting through here within the next few months of the daughter or the father of the girl who we just gave a scholarship to, of one of the girls we gave a scholarship to this last year.
Well, and let me kind of explain a little further, because if you take that because you give so much scholarship money away every year, and if you take that over years and build it all up, they will have an amount like TCU. It was $50,000. So we donated that to their scholarship program that gets us invited to a donors dinner every year with $1 million donors. It gets us invited to a few other events that gets us into the TCU community. I'm sure Tarleton would have the same thing. You know what I mean? To where every year that $50,000 gives out like a $2,000 to $3,000 scholarship to a TCU student.
Yeah, that's a pretty good idea. I'll definitely be hitting some people up about that.
No, and chat with me afterwards. I can give you the details, because it's a great thing to look into, because we've had other lodges looking into doing it for like some of the smaller colleges, and like the buy-in is, $5,000 to $10,000. It's a lot less than whatever you would consider TCU. Our lodge being an instrumental part of creating that university years and years ago, we felt obligated to go with them.
Yeah, I was there for that meeting whenever y'all had mentioned something about that, and I thought that was pretty cool. How were y'all actually instrumental with TCU if it's not too long of a conversation?
No, it's just real basic. That basically members of our lodge helped started that. Whether they were original members of 148 or different, because if Robert Marshall was on here, I'm sure he would argue with me that it was Waco that started it. But I think maybe Waco members came up and joined. I'm not for sure how that worked.
They would have to transfer, because at the time you could not plural. You had to be a member of one lodge and only one lodge.
Exactly. So how it exactly started, no matter how you cut it, Masons started that college. But there's evidence in our history that members of our lodge were instrumental in that. That's
awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know we, as far as Stephenville, we helped start the town. George Erath was I believe one of our secretaries, either that or John Stevens was. I know both of them were instrumental in starting our lodge. Unfortunately, I have a lodge history book. I just haven't been able to crack it too much yet. I've been too focused since I've been a master on in between the Monitor and the Holy Bible, trying to figure out things on King Solomon and knowing my Monitor a little bit better. So I haven't really gotten to the history of my lodge as well as I'd like to yet. But I know a lot of those guys are instrumental in the town and the county, but not so much Tarleton State. And I don't believe that John Tarleton was a Mason, but I'm not sure.
You need to put an alert like on eBay or Google, because your lodge is going to have a comprehensive history out there. As old as it is, I guarantee you there's a book, if it's not already in your lodge.
Oh, I have a copy of it. It's about 250 pages long. It's a pretty good little book. Majority of it was, I believe, was a past master of ours, but I've only read about the first 20 pages, and that was probably almost a year ago. So, like I said, I'm not too fluent in it, but I know we have a lot of the same people that started our lodge here were the same people that started our town in our county in general, and so on. Like, I know a lot of the same guys, like George B. Erath was a founder at Waco 92, founder at Stephenville 267 as well.
Yeah, and any lodge that, like we talked about before the podcast, you guys are the mother lodge of Erath, we're the mother lodge of Tarrant. Any lodge like that can trace the roots back to the city, to the members. It's amazing. Mm-hmm.
Yep. So one of the bullet points that you sent us when you were kind of going with a subject you wanted to talk about on the podcast was Masonry in Stephenville. And I wanted to ask, what are y'all doing to cause new member growth over there?
Well, a lot of it is we're trying to reach out a little bit to the community to where they can kind of see that we are, like I said, essentially a part of the community, and we're trying to help out in a lot of different ways. We're doing various things, like we helped out with Safe Trick or Treat this last Monday. We've also helped out in the kids area for 4th of July. We have, I think it's called like Bands, Bottle Rockets, and Barbecue out here. I know I'm in talks with some of my lodge members about this upcoming May, I believe, actually helping out with, where we can get out and actually they can see what we're doing and help us out, and that we're helping the community. Other things we're doing are pretty simple things like adopt a highway. We have a 2-mile stretch of highway out County Road 1 between Natty Flats and Stephenville. Actually, I believe Morgan Mill and Stephenville. And we go out and we clean up that stretch of the highway. Actually, that's something we get to do this weekend. But a lot of it's just getting out in the community. Another part of it is just talking with friends of ours, just talking about some of the cool things we're doing, and just trying to show how we're active to our friends, not really rushing people or trying to get them to join. We're just telling them what we're doing, trying to get them to show interest back towards us on what we get to do.
And I think this is one of the main reasons I want you on is that you're really as close as we've had to a rural type lodge. Mm-hmm. And, when you talk about like adopt a highway, for us at 148 to do that, not only would it be detrimental to our health and dangerous probably, it wouldn't have the effect that it has in that rural community. So I really wanted to highlight the fact that because we've mainly had urban lodges on, and what has worked for us isn't necessarily going to work for the Royal Lodge.
Yeah.
And vice versa, because for you guys to go adopt a highway, half the town probably knows about that.
Yeah, every single person that gets to drive down, I believe it's called Highway 108. Highway 108 actually gets to see Stephenville Masonic Lodge number 267. Then we get 2 little signs for Adopt a Highway, and I think it's pretty awesome. Like I said, we just did that a couple weeks ago, so we're growing exponentially in the past year. We've actually had, including myself, we've had 14 new members join since November 15th of last year. So We're doing something right. I'm not really sure exactly what to tell y'all that is the main key on what we're doing. We're doing a lot of things that are just the stepping stones up to where we want to be, and bringing Masonry back to Stephenville to the extent of what it was, and just having that great community.
No, and I really feel like if we chase this rabbit down, that when it comes to weaving Masonry back into our societal fabric, it's going to start in areas like that first, which is going to help us guys like in Dallas and Fort Worth wove it into our communities as well, because you guys can make such profound differences with just small gestures as compared to us in a community, to where we do have a lot of guys coming in to join. So our numbers may be bigger, but the rural lodges are the ones that's going to give us the publicity to get our name back in society.
Yeah. Well, you have so many more rural lodges and so much more of an expanse whenever you're talking about a lodge like mine versus a lodge like yours, because even in y'all's lodge room, y'all have, within 100 feet, y'all have 3 or 4 different lodges that meet. With us, you're looking at least 13 to 14 miles in between one lodge to another. And a lot of those, like with us, we're a big lodge in District 67. We're actually the biggest lodge in District 67, but majority of the other ones, we do things as a group. Like we actually have a District 67 Facebook page. We try to do things to where if I go to Chalk Mountain, I'm going to see probably the same 4 or 5 guys from my lodge that I see if I go to Harmony, or if I decided I wanted to go towards Bluffdale, somewhere just smaller around there. We try to expand as a community and help each other out in general as a county and as a Masonic district.
District, did you say you were 65th?
67th.
67th. Okay, we're 64th.
Yeah. Aren't y'all like 64A or 64B or something?
Yeah, so Tarrant County split into 4, A, B, and C, or A, B, C, and D, and we're A.
Rhit knows how to
Awesome.
count.
Okay, cool. Yeah, because I know Brad Billings was one of y'all's district deputies for 64, but I know it had to be a different area, because whenever I went, y'all had y'all's meeting, or y'all's district deputy meeting, and he wasn't there, so I figured it had to be split up a little bit different.
Yeah, he's B.
Yeah. Oh man.
He
remember 64 Brad.
Yeah. Well, he says 64 best, but he doesn't know. I don't guess he's been told they've been put in order. The best district, A, B, and C, and D.
Yeah.
So, it's cool. He says that, but bummer for him. He doesn't know.
Yeah. It's okay. Something for him to learn.
You got it.
Yeah. But we actually have 8 different lodges in our district. I believe it's 8. It might be 7, but if I'm correct, it's 8 different lodges in our district. I visited off the top of my head, I know I've visited 4 of them so far. So I'm still pretty new on trying to go out and visit other lodges. Actually, y'all's lodge is the farthest I've gone as far as trying to journey out and be a traveler and trying different districts. But I do have a bucket list of different places I want to go, as far as like historical and as far as things that mean something to me. So, I always think that's cool, and you got to know where you're going, if that makes sense.
Right.
You absolutely do.
What would you say would be on your bucket list in terms of not just visiting lodges, but in terms of Masonic goals?
Well, I do. I had always told myself I wanted to be a Scottish Rite Mason, which I had the opportunity to do. My grandma was a 32nd degree Scottish Rite Mason, like we all are. Actually, everyone on this podcast is. But it was cool that he's actually the reason I joined Freemasonry. Basically, he passed away when I was 5, so I didn't really get to know him too well. But I got the only thing I really inherited from Masonic rings. So basically, I got to stare at that since I was 5 years old, and I knew that he traveled around to over 206 different countries at one point, and he was part of the Defense Intelligence Agency and part of the Air Force. He was really big into traveling, so I knew that with Masonry, I got to know a little bit more about him that I wasn't able military history, and I knew I kind of got off subject. I'm sorry about that, but I kind of get to see and experience the traveling aspect, the same traveling aspect that he had. If you could repeat the question, because I know I kind of got off.
Well, still 206 countries, though. I don't think you'll get there.
Yeah, no, I don't think so either. I know he 3 different wars, or not wars, of course. He fought in 3 different major wars, and like I said, he had been to so many different countries. So he was actually, at one point, he was second in command of the Defense Intelligence Agency. So there's no telling the secrets he actually knew. But the whole secretism of the whole secret aspect of the craft was part of what brought me in to actually be able to know some of the things that he knew. So I always find the ritual really interesting to me in that fact, just because it's something that it's more of a family aspect of I get to know what the same general things he knew, if that makes sense. So getting to be a 32nd degree, it was kind of one of those. It was like, oh, I finally made it.
So what would you say should be on everybody's bucket list?
As far as everybody's bucket list, I would say pick 10 lodges that you always hear about or want to go to, and tell yourself that you're going to go to those lodges sometime in your lifetime. If you can't been to over 10 different lodges, then really, to me, I've always wanted to travel and always wanted to get that better aspect of what Masonry is about ever since I joined. So you need to have that expanded view of it. You need to have 10 lodges that you want to be able to pull from or pull from those experiences and the people that you get to meet in the.
I think you're spot on with the visiting, though, because it's magic. And you say 10 lodges in your lifetime, and I maybe I can understand that out there in a rural area where it's a little harder to get to lodges. But I mean,
well, if you're like Sam Gibbons, you can join 100.
Well, Sam, I think, visited close to 100 lodges in a year, because I was going to say I've done 10 in the last 3 months. I know.
Yeah.
Well, and to be fair, though, you started, you had to visit a bunch of lodges when you were the DDGM. So,
yeah,
that's true. That's true. But it is one of those things that you don't regret doing. I never was like, oh, I've got to go to another stated meeting as DDGM. I always looked forward to it. It was a unique kind of feeling. And, once you break that ice and get it going, especially as you get to know people at each different lodge, it just makes it easier and easier.
This is with some regret that I say this, but I have been to stated meetings while traveling where I went, why am I here?
Oh, yeah. Well, that's a different thing.
It happens.
There
it happens, moments. And it's unfortunate, but
yeah, you get in the middle of a stated meeting and drama kicks off, and you're like, I probably shouldn't be here.
Well, it's like when you're a little kid. Remember when you were a little kid and you went over to your friend's house for a sleepover or whatever. And maybe your friend misbehaved and his mom is yelling at him or their parents get in a fight or something like that. And you're just like, yeah. I want to leave, but I can't go home because mom hasn't showed up yet.
Yeah, that was the bad thing for me. I can tell you, I know 2 or 3 of the different lodges I visited I visited on the month that that they had a discussion about Prop 1, the gun control issue, and it was like, oh man,
good stuff.
Not
right
something
there.
I want to know.
Oh my goodness, it's why we don't talk about politics in lodge.
Yeah,
that's good stuff right there.
Yes, it is.
I know I've personally already hit up about 7 or 8, and like I said, I'm little less than a year in, and I'm still trying to hit every point I can within just my district alone. Like I said, y'all are the farthest I've gone, and y'all are only about an hour and a half. But I can tell you right now, in either January or February, whenever my cousin has her kid up in Lovington, New Mexico, I'll be heading up towards New Mexico and trying to do a couple stated meetings up there, or hopefully maybe a couple different degrees. And I'd like to check out a different jurisdiction and things like that. And I know everywhere that I travel, as far as just personally alone, I will be trying to travel to where I can go and experience a different jurisdictions, either degrees or stated meetings, and just see how things are and get a different perspective of Masonry.
Now you're talking. Yeah, that's where the magic happens when you visit other jurisdictions and they do it different, and you're like, it's a unique experience.
Yeah.
And those are cool too, because I mean, sometimes they act different, and they will dress the master differently, but also the difference in the ritual, that the wording will be slightly different from jurisdiction to jurisdiction is very cool.
Yeah. I know my neighbor down here, he's actually originally from Kansas, and he's a Mason from Kansas, and I know that he actually his worshipful master at the time that he transferred down here told him that he could no longer teach degrees down here because the way they taught in Kansas was apparently so different from the way they teach in Texas that it was throwing off all the people he was trying to teach.
Yeah, I got to say, watching Oklahoma work wigged me out because it was so similar, but just when I thought I would be able to like mouth along with the degree, I got lost.
Oh,
because it just changes at the last second, and you're like, wait a minute, I thought I knew that,
Yeah, it's like, dang.
One of our past masters from Fort Worth Lodge, Daryl Spindler, is originally from Tennessee, and he just sometimes he you can see him just digging in his brain, going, wait a minute, no, that's Tennessee. Like you can just see him going, nope, that's Tennessee work, and so that's always kind of fun.
And with him, what was really cool is I remember when he first came back, I was pro-temming as junior your deacon, and he was sitting in as Tyler. And so I remember opening the door and saying my line to him, and he responded, and it just totally threw me off because I wasn't used to that. But apparently they do that in Tennessee.
Oh, they have a response? I had no idea. Jason, one of the things that you've mentioned is trying to avoid burnout. So how do you avoid burnout? How do you plan ahead for stuff?
Well, for me personally, I try to have a 10 to 15 year schedule as far as like, I actually had planned on joining York Rite, joined Scottish Rite because I wanted Scottish Rite to essentially be a finale, but then I posted that I was considering about it, and Rhit was like, well, why don't you join? And I just kind of didn't have a good excuse, so I went ahead and said I'm going to go ahead and join now. But no, I had a plan on going, okay, I'm only going to join a certain rite at a certain time, so that way I still have something more to look towards in Masonry besides just in Blue Lodge. And if I'm anything like my worshipful master over at Harmony is right now, I know he's been master of 4 different lodges, or this is his 4th different lodge. So he likes to spread out his time in Masonry between different lodges in that fact, and it's pretty awesome to me because it's one of those that it's okay. I'll kind of rewind a little bit. It's something that I don't want to try to do everything in Masonry and go on as I can, so that it's not one of those that I look back 10 years down the line and go, okay, I was a York Rite Mason, Scottish Rite Mason, Shriner, Grotto. I've done everything I could think of doing. I'm going to go ahead and get past Master's Disease and off the map. I don't want to do that. So I'm looking at it going, okay, I know if everything goes well in 5 years, or in 4 years, I'll be the worshipful master at Stephenville. And then in 5 years or 6 years, I'll be the worshipful master in Harmony. After that, I'll be able to be, hopefully, maybe if somebody down in Grand Lodge likes me, I might be able to be a DDGM someday. And then looking at doing something with Scottish Rite in between those times a little bit and trying to grow whatever way I can in my craft and that. And then once I at least get to hopefully worshipful master or a past master of at least one lodge, then work right and growing in that, because I know that's very similar to Blue Lodge from what I understand. And it's just something that I want to keep growing and keep enjoying myself in it and keep learning through degrees.
That sounds like a great plan.
Yeah. And by the way, I still will hit you up, Gabe, whenever I get ready for it.
And you got to be ready for burnout, because it's going to hit you in different levels and different phases. It will happen to the best of them. You have to be prepared for it.
Yeah.
And know when to recharge. Because if you let burnout, if you go until you just completely sizzle out, a lot of times guys don't come back.
Yeah. And for me, it's essentially, it's Masonry to me is like almost like a family thing, if that makes sense. It's something that, like, whenever I go to a lodge, I feel like it's something that I don't ever really want to lose. So I guess that for me keeps burnout a little bit away. But like I said, I'm only a year in, so I'm still trying to get more on fire about it, but I'm not trying to burn. I'm not trying to just sizzle out.
Well, and the thing about it is that you just have to understand it's part of the process, that you're going to get burnout to retest you, and just like the phoenix, rise from the ashes and get going again. Because if you're a good man getting better, it's not going to be all cupcakes and candy canes every single year, every moment. You're going to have moments to where you question what you're doing, and you're going to have to redefine that to yourself and remind yourself what you're doing. So be ready for it. It happens to everybody.
Yeah, I know. There's been a couple instances just in my little bit of time there where I've had whisper wise counsel to me and on different things, and I know that I personally changed in different ways in a better way to be a better Mason. So I know there's different things that will hit me as roadblocks along the way, and I'm hoping I'm prepared for it.
It's all you can do.
Yeah,
no doubt.
So kind of to close out, I wanted to ask you a 2-part question. First part is, what is the funniest thing you've seen go down in a lodge room? Second part is, what is the most memorable thing that you've seen in the craft outside of degrees?
Well, okay, the funniest thing I've seen in a lodge room, and this is kind of bad because it was my fault for doing it. I was master of ceremonies for the guy that I'm mentoring right now, and he was going through his EA degree, a little bit bigger of a guy, and most everybody in our lodge wears the same pair of sweats whenever they go through their degrees. Well, I've seen really, really big guys in that same pair of sweats, and I've seen really, really skinny guys go through the same degree in that same pair of sweats. So I didn't think about it. We have another pair, but it's not hemmed up in a way that it's appropriate for different degrees. It's just not set up that way yet. So I felt really bad. I didn't think about it until I sat down and had already had him through the door and everything, and I could see pretty well. It looked like he was going to work as a plumber. I'll just put it that way.
Oh man!
And pretty well the whole lodge saw it.
It's like he's wearing a wetsuit bottom.
Yeah, pretty
skin
much.
Tight.
Yeah, it was bad.
Been there.
Really, probably some of the best memories I have as a man, just not necessarily like the degree work and like, actually going through the ritual, but Stephen Burge is a really good friend of mine, and he's become, more than a mentor, just a really, really good friend and a really good, kind of a big brother in that sense, of somebody I look forward to seeing every time I see him, and somebody who I can look to for wise counsel. And I can just think of plenty of different times where I've talked to him about a lot of different things that have been going on in my life, and he's me out on and, been that brother that I needed at that time.
Man, your story, your funny story reminds me of a former DDGM was telling me on his last visit, his official visit as DDGM years ago. He was closing it out. Everybody was having a good time, and he was finishing up his speech. Night had went great, and right when he wrapped up his speech and got ready to basically go sit back down, his whole pants fall down. So it's like he had his apron on still, his DDGM apron, but his pants fell down to his ankles.
Yeah, that might be a little worse.
Well, and that's like I told him. I said that's a memorable moment, so it can't be that bad.
Yeah. I mean, it's always fun, and that's always going to be the thing that you remember something that you get to laugh about later on. It's kind of like I messed up and I got my own self. My most personal embarrassing moment is I let somebody who I shouldn't have let tattoo me give me a Masonic tattoo, and now I got to get it covered up. So we all have a little bit of dumb moments in Masonry, but we all get to learn from them. So that's the best part, is getting to learn from it.
And I will tell you, go to Army Navy. They sell scrubs, and we bought black scrubs, and you just what do you call it? Make them appropriate.
Yeah, trim them up as needed.
Yeah, trim them up as needed. There you go. And they're not that expensive, and we got all different sizes to where the guys are comfortable, because it does kind of suck. I've seen guys walking around having to hold their pants, and I've seen guys wearing it. It's like skin on a weenie. They're so tight, and they can't be comfortable. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, you're talking about, maybe $100, and you can get 9 pairs of scrubs for all degrees, 3 different sizes for each one. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that wouldn't be bad. No, I felt really bad about it because it was my fault. And he even asked, he's like, "Do we have any?" And I was like, "No, that's what everybody goes through."
That's awesome.
Yeah. And I saw it. I was like, "Oh no, man, I feel bad for him." Plus, I've known the guy for decades, so it was just like, "Oh man, I'm going to hear about this."
Yeah.
And that's something that maybe the investigation committee could, clue you in on and say, hey, you may want to ask the brother to bring something of his own that he can wear.
Yeah, that wouldn't be a bad deal either. Yeah. Like I said, we had another pair. I just didn't think to put it on him because it was one of those that I wasn't prepared for the degree he was going into. So.
Well, yeah, it's funny what the investigation team might have to get, because I heard of one the other day that was commando, and it was like, oh man, put this suit on that no telling hundreds of other guys have worn.
Yeah, well, I know we always tell them go make sure to wear underwear and socks. Just as long as you got those 2 on, you're okay.
That seems so weird to tell people too. Like if I'm a candidate coming in, because that wasn't told me, and if they said just make sure I'm wearing underwear and socks, I'd be like, what in the heck is about to happen to me?
Yeah. No, I felt bad the first time, or my entered apprentice. It's the only time I've ever worn shorts in a degree, and I felt so horrible about it because I didn't know that. I thought like the entire time, like I'm used. I went through a college fraternity, so like I'm used to the entire time you're in robe or you're in some sort of garment that is prepared for initiation. I didn't think about the fact that you come back in afterwards to hear a lecture. And it was one of those, man, I felt bad because I was in flip-flops and shorts.
Oh, don't feel bad. I wear shorts to my fellow craft.
Yeah.
So
this week's fraternal quote is, history has to judge every man who served. I don't know how they're going to treat me. I may be the worst SOB that ever came down the pike, but I won't lose any sleep over it. I just like to be remembered as an honest person who tried. That's from Brother Barry Goldwater, U.S. Senator, member of Arizona Lodge No. 2 FNAM in Phoenix, Arizona.
Best SOB that ever tried.
Yeah.
Well, gentlemen, I have enjoyed this. Jason, thank you for coming on.
Well, thank y'all for having me.
You bet. I know we'll do it again in the future at some point.
Well, yes, sir. Anytime you want.
Absolutely.
All right. So,
Gabe, do we want to finish up with closing thoughts?
Sure. Let's do that. So,
Want me to
Rhit,
go first,
how
I
about
guess?
You? Yeah, let's have Jason go last.
No, I think the biggest highlight out of this whole thing that Jason hit on was visiting. And I can't implore that enough, how magical that is. Even if you can't grab, if you're an EA or a new Master Mason and you can't grab an older one to kind of help you break the ice, go do it anyways. Just grab your dues card, make sure you got your driver's license, and go visit. You will not regret it.
Definitely. Yep, I know I've only crossed off 2 of my top 10 to go to, so I've still got a ways to go.
Sweet. Billy, you got some thoughts?
I mean, that's a great idea. I've traveled and I've visited some lodges, but usually it's just who's available when I happen to be in town. But I never even thought about creating like a bucket list of lodges that I absolutely need to plan around just to visit. And that's a great idea. I'm going to steal that shamelessly, Jason, if you don't.
You're more than welcome. I'll even post it on Texas Freemasons. I'll post mine on Texas Freemasons if you want.
That's a good idea. Get that started. Yeah, because I can think of 4 or 5 I still want to visit. Then I'd have to get outside of state.
Yeah, most of mine are within state right now. I have a few out of state, but mainly I still want to, I want to visit places like Webb and Joel P. Lightfoot and, Gray Lodge, a couple of the other ones like Holland I think it's Holland number 2.
Number 1.
A couple of the other historic lodges and different places like that.
Yeah, Holland 1, Milam 2.
Holland 1, Milam 2, okay.
Yeah, which I'll be at JPL Thursday.
Yeah, awesome. No, actually, I really want to go to Harmony number. I believe it's Harmony number 3, just because I want to say that whenever they stand me up as a visitor, I want to say, yeah, I'm a member of Harmony Lodge. 592.
592.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say, guys, this is a really cool example of 2 very different experiences in Masonry coming together. Jason, he's out, in Stephenville. It's more of a rural lodge. We're out here in Fort Worth Lodge, and it's very much an urban lodge. And we've got, we share all these things, but you see that, like, the way that you develop this tight-knit sort of subset of brethren, you see that a lot more in the rural lodges. And so, if you're out there in the country, take advantage of that, because the guys that you see at your lodge are going to be plugged in everywhere else too. And sometimes that, depending on your situation, that may or may not be a good thing, but it will happen. And it's a great thing to be able to rely on. So, the urban areas, you're not likely to see the same person on one side of the Metroplex as on the other. And so it tends to, I feel like in the Metroplex, we tend to isolate ourselves within the urban lodges, which you don't really see in the country. So,
yeah.
For our brothers out there who aren't in the cities, like, I would say take some good encouragement from Jason's experience here. But Jason, do you have any closing thoughts for us?
Yeah, I do. I believe it was Albert Einstein that said, if you want to live a happy life, tie it to a goal, not to people or objects. So for me, that just means, tie it to something else. Tie it to something you want, not an object, but something that you want out of yourself or out of, just out of life in general. Tie it to something bigger than yourself, bigger than even you think you can strive for, and just see if you can do it.
All right, guys. So if you want to reach us, you can reach us at www.fortworth148.org. We are at Fort Worth Lodge 148 on Facebook. You can email us at info148@fortworth148.org. If you live in the 64th District of the Grand Lodge of Texas and you want to promote an event, please reach out to them at 64th.org. That's 64th.org.
And actually, before we close, there is a degree next Saturday on 18th that is held, or it will be at my lodge, Stephenville number 267. It'll be a master's degree that will be put on by the Scottish Rite degree team, I believe, of Fort Worth Valley. And I'm just inviting all Freemasons to come. Make sure to bring your dues card. And if you could, please message us on Facebook, or just try to find me personally on Facebook, or you can call our number and just RSVP just a little bit ahead of time so we can make sure to cook you breakfast. The degree starts at 9 a.m. and breakfast starts at 8. So I look forward to seeing y'all there.
And what was the date of that again?
It is November 18th.
Awesome.
Not this Saturday, but next.
Yes, sir.
All right, boys. Well, I have had a fantastic evening. This is Rhit Moore signing off.
This is Billy Hamilton signing off.
This is Gabriel Jagush signing off.
This is Jason Banks signing off. Thank y'all for having me.